Hello and welcome to Mr. Clark After Dark, everyone. My name is Lucas Clark and I am a certified educator with Alberta Education and the Alberta Teachers Association. All conversations and interactions exchanged is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. In no way does the content discussed intend to be in violation of the ATA Code of Conduct or meant to target any individual student, teacher, or to belittle the profession in any way. If you have something that you would like me to discuss or have a story of your own to share, please reach out at lucasrdclark97@gmail.com. You can also send a direct message on Instagram at Mr. Clark After Dark. Hope you enjoy the show, and please do not forget to subscribe. Welcome back, everyone, for episode 2 of 2 for Tom Keca. Hope you appreciated episode number 1. I cannot promise there's as many exhilarating stories about IBO on this time around, but I definitely think you all enjoy. Please do not forget to subscribe at the end of the video.
I'll tell the story. When I was growing up, and again, my dad was a was a soccer player. So my first year hockey, I'll never forget this. My dad's like, okay, so hockey's done. We never had spring hockey. Yeah. Hockey's done. Now you have to pick a sport. What do you want to play? I said, Dad, I want to play baseball. And my dad said, wrong. What do you mean? And my dad says, you're gonna play soccer. I was like, what do you mean I'm gonna play soccer? And all my buddies play baseball. Yeah. My dad said no. He says, you're gonna play soccer because first of all you get to run. Yeah. And it's going to be good cardio. And secondly, my dad said, I know about soccer, so I can coach. Yes. So my dad coached me all through, and I was pretty good at soccer. We won, teams back then. We won some provincial championships. Yeah. I went to a tryout for the national team and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was just the parallels, were there. And so with Carter, he plays lacrosse, in the off season. So, but I think that nowadays when you talk about sports, that we just have too many kids that are just too driven by one sport. And I don't think that that's healthy for anybody. So that's why I believe as a coach, it is more challenging as a teacher, because the knowledge of the sport, like the kids know a lot more about the sport. Yeah. So where you're a teacher who was a coach, you didn't necessarily need to know all the intricacies of the sport. Yeah. But now you need to, because the kids are going to question you. And if you don't know the answer, you're going to lose.
100%. And that's that's been my main crutch is even I played football, but only in grade 12, only 9-man. Yeah. To then go and help out the 12-man team. I'm like, whoa, this is two different worlds. It's the same sport, similar fundamentals, but only playing for a year. Some of these kids are actually kind of been playing for longer than I did. Yeah. So but then kind of being asked to be a coach. Every time I've asked, well, now how do I get better at coaching? Just watch some videos on YouTube. But this is the thing where I'm that doesn't make me feel confident in just kind of relaying a drill that they could just go watch on YouTube. You know what I mean? I don't know what my role is here that's supposed to move them to the next level. And that's kind of
and the worst fear is that they're going to ask you a question you don't know the answer.
Oh, 100%. And so that's kind of where, was there ever a case kind of in your assistant coaching days where did you ever feel oh, this is a very good player. How do I actually help them get better? Were you ever not insecure, but kind of the imposter, a little bit of I don't know actually how to elevate this player? Because not all great coaches are great players. Because a lot of great coaches will be some of them might have just only played even junior B or whatever, but then they'll have this intricate knowledge of the game and they develop players like crazy. What do you
Totally. And I think now, in the hockey world, I think you look at it, like you said, not all great players are great coaches. Yeah. Because if that was the case, Wayne Gretzky would have been the greatest coach ever.
Worked out very well.
and instead, Scotty Bowman and that, they were never great players. But again, it's more of a mental thing. I think for us, it was always about the message that we always gave all of our players was that we're going to teach you to become better human beings rather than just hockey players, right? Because all of these kids, whether you're at school sports or whatever, they're gonna be fathers, husbands, friends a lot longer than what they're going to be athletes. Yeah. So I think for me as a hockey guy, I'm confident enough now that, okay, we're going to teach them stuff about hockey. Mm-hmm. To me, it's more important. Okay, we're going to teach you more life skills that are going to help you whether you're in the classroom, whether you're in the boardroom, whether you're in the operating room.
What kind of life skills are you kind of referring to? Like, is there?
You know what? For me, again, it's about the respect thing. It's about, accountability. I think that as teachers, I think you would maybe agree, is the biggest phrase that we hear now is that sense of entitlement by kids.
Yeah.
I'm entitled to this just because I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's not. If you want something, you have to earn it.
Yeah.
And you got to work hard. And for me, I even break it down with my hockey players, is there's a difference between working hard and competing hard. So for me, you don't get any extra points just because you work hard, because that should be a given. To me, the difference is players that will compete hard. So there's a puck in the corner. The guy next to me, he might be bigger.
Yeah.
He might be faster.
Yeah.
He might be better. But
he might actually wreck me. But
how much am I willing to compete?
Yeah. I know there's like one thing about William Nylander. I think last year he was kind of like he just completely avoids going to the corner. He's like, I'm out of here.
Exactly. That was against Tampa Bay in one of the games.
Okay, so yeah.
And that's exactly it. So when I tell my guys, like, you're not getting any extra. So even when I ask people, I said, well, what makes you a good player? Well, I work hard. Well, everybody should work hard.
It's like once you get to junior, it's like if you're playing junior hockey, yeah, you work hard. We get it. Like
the things that separate elite athletes, because everybody is skilled, everybody can skate, everybody can stick handle, everybody can shoot. It's the compete level. And when you talk about any sport, so right now probably the biggest buzz is like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Why was Michael Jordan considered the GOAT?
Yeah.
Because he was ultra competitive. And you watch The Last Dance and you sort of understand where that would sort of rub
thousands of dollars from people in golf. Dude,
exactly.
I love that.
like everything. And
every shot.
And you know what? Yeah. And I had a friend who was a scout and worked with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And he would say, Kex, like, Sidney Crosby is the most competitive person you've ever met. Whether you're playing basketball, whether you're playing ping pong, whether you're doing something on a computer.
Okay, so
they're just wired differently. And elite athletes are just wired differently.
I remember when, like, a few years ago, it was when Nathan McKinnon, they got eliminated. And he's like, I haven't won shit.
Yeah.
Like, and he was like
9 years.
Pissed off.
Yeah.
Wins like everything the next year. Like literally every single. Did he didn't win the Conn Smythe?
No.
He won the Conn Smythe?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know that. But still, like then he wins everything. So it's like that kind of like internal competitive.
Well, and that's the other thing. And I go back to the thing I say, Kex isn't for everybody. When you're on the ice with me, like I tell the kids, there are two types of people. There's winners and there's losers. I'm sorry. That's why we keep score.
Yeah.
Nobody wakes up today and gets out of bed saying, you know what? I want to be just as good as the next guy. I want to tie. That doesn't happen. And the mindset is, and that's why when I'll design a lot of my practices, there'll be games and there'll be winners. Yeah. And even the kids, like I coached a 2013 group this year, and they know it. I do the old Jim Carrey voice. Losers. There's winners and there's losers. And it's okay to be a loser today, because tomorrow you're going to get another opportunity to be a winner. Just because you lost today doesn't mean you're a loser forever. But you have to understand.
Being a good loser is kind of like a good.
You have to understand. There's winners, there's losers. Like that's the way it is.
Honestly, I like baseball for that. It's like if you're hitting .330, it's like you're still not getting on base like 7 out of 10 times.
But you're considered a great hitter.
But you're considered one of the
I think that's
one
bullshit.
of the best.
See, I think that's bullshit. I can fail 7 out of 10 times.
To be elite.
And so, I'm elite. Yeah, no, you're not.
I know. You can do 8 out of 10 times.
Right? But no, it's like, I'm sorry. Like that's in life. That's just the way. And we are like, there's so many things. Like
to play baseball.
But I would have hit 700 or 800.
Yeah.
But I also believe that that's a little bit of maybe the problems that we have today. We want to celebrate everybody just showing up. We're going to give everybody a participation. No, you're not.
But that's like that's kind of the part that I find interesting. Because it seems to me, just as like a general observer, like of every sport, it's like the sports are getting increasingly better at the highest level.
Yes.
But then also we're getting a bit more forgiving, and like we're giving awards for more, but the quality of the sports are still getting better. You know what I mean?
But I think it goes back to because we have so many kids that are specialized. Yeah. They're doing this like year round.
Yeah. So would you ever do like playing different sports? So say you have your hockey team and you're like, would you ever not have practice on the ice one day to go play a game of lacrosse or to go play a game of volleyball?
You scared they get hurt? No, we encourage. But I also know with the hockey guys even this year. So I'll be coaching next year in Edmonton, the U15 team, and I told my kids like put away your stuff. Like go be kids. Go water skiing. Go do this. Go go ride bikes. Go do you encourage that. Because again, like the different system stuff, you don't become robotic, and you can think in different.
And you also might, like, if you're getting kind of caught in the same mistakes, like taking a mental break, and then coming back to it, you might be like way better and be like, oh, I just gave myself time to kind of actually like relax and learn and like let my body process it, rather than just going in every day and kind of making the same mistakes over and over and over.
Well, you look at how many kids, and there are a number of reasons why kids quit sports. Cost is obviously something, and accessibility and things. But I also do believe that because so many kids start at a young age, it's hockey, and then spring hockey, now summer hockey, I got to do that, and then eventually you just get burnt out and say, like, I just can't do this. So totally agree with you from the sense that if you don't do it, and then when you get to it, wow, like that's pretty cool. I get to do that, and I do encourage different sports, because it does, like, even motor skills, and things like that. Like it's amazing.
And so I'm gonna like shift gears a little bit here, but like one of the things that I really learned from you this year in our 1 year sharing our room second block was like, so trying to plan the Grad Cup. I was like, oh, like we're trying to get people from the community involved. You're like, oh, here's this person, this person, this person, and this person. Like you had a lot of connections kind of like in the community as like sponsorships and people who'd be willing to kind of be involved. I guess my thing is, if you're someone who's being promoted to be, if you're going to a new city and you're a head coach, like how much of it was your role to kind of get sponsors, and like how would you kind of go out to find sponsors for a team? Was it like a challenging thing, or was it always like usually pretty willing?
So now, like for me right now, like let's say when we moved to Lloydminster, you get instant credibility when you're the head coach of a certain team.
Okay.
So right away people assume that because you're the head coach, of this team, okay, he must know what he's doing, and it's easier to make those relationships. It's also like just your character and your likability and your personality and things. And it's one of the things that I try and instill in my kids is first of all, you be polite. You give a nice firm handshake, you make eye contact, and because your ability to make relationships or establish relationships are going to affect you in the future. I'm not saying that you have to be best friends with everybody. No. But you're polite, you're courteous, you're respectful.
Like there people will remember a positive recollection of their experience.
Exactly.
That's kind of like whether or not they like, oh, like he's like, they shouldn't be like, oh, I never want to deal with that person ever again. Yeah. That shouldn't be the result.
Yeah. So I think like that's it. So even now, like we're moving to Beaumont and I'll be working in Edmonton. We've got a golf tournament in August, but I know enough people in Edmonton where I can call up 10, 12 guys. Okay, listen, I need your help with this golf tournament. And they'll do it. So it's about the relationships. And I think even with kids nowadays, it's unfortunate because we all look at it and we all say, how many times have you been around a table at a restaurant or at home and everybody's on their phone? So there's no communication taking place, but everybody's staring down at their phone. And I think that's a skill that we're losing a little bit of because we're too focused on what's going on in social media, whether it's I laugh because I say it's Insta chat and Snapgram and, like I don't even know what all these TikTok flip flop and all this kind of stuff. But the need to establish relationships is diminished because it's all done on social media. I can text, and you know what? Even a parallel that I'll use is we think that one of the easiest, as a hockey coach, one of the easiest things that you ask players to do is communicate on the ice. Like just talk to one another. But yet they won't do it.
Yeah, and they never.
Now, if I gave them a phone, they could probably text, "Hey, watch out! This guy's right on you. I'm free up the middle. If you pass me the puck, I'll go in." They could probably do that. But just the fact that they want to communicate, and even in dressing rooms and in that, and even in classrooms, the willingness and for kids to really want to put themselves out there and need to communicate is diminished because I'll just be on my phone.
Yes, because even like sometimes you gave me a few numbers this year, and like everyone I dealt with was great, but I always felt like, and again, weird in my own head I always felt weird reaching out to someone knowing that they knew I like wanted something from them potentially. You know what I mean?
Tough.
And that was like a weird kind of being like, I almost don't want to sound fake, but I don't want to sound like I'm not like, I am kind of contacting you for a reason. So how would you kind of have that conversation? Say you have like a new sponsor you really want. But
that's tough. And I think again, you have to establish that relationship where there's going to be times where you contact that person just to say, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
How's work?
Don't always kind of make it like business.
Because listen, we all know, like I look at my phone when one of my buddies calls me, oh, he's asking for something. Like I'm not going to take it. So for me, it's about, you know, and I think also now is I just talked about that being a detriment, but it's also positive from the sense that you can text somebody and say, hey, how's it going? What's new at work? How's work going? Like just touching in. So you're not doing it to ask somebody, hey, I just want to know how you're doing.
But you know, I almost find like, I don't want to say like it's a generational thing, but I find if one of my friends, if I text them, they'd be like, Clark, why are you texting me? Like,
what do you want?
Like even if I was like,
I just want to know how you are. Do you need a hug?
Let's think if I was like, how's your like siblings doing? They'd be like, why are you being weird? Like it wouldn't, I find there's not that much. Like that is kind of the social media generation is like, if you're not just commenting on my post, like you're texting me, that's weird. Right? Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird, and maybe like,
I'm too old school to like, I don't necessarily view it that way. So for me, it's, you know, when you see something on social media and you see a friend that's going through something, you can comment on it, say, hey, listen, hey, great job, or I saw this, or how's this, whether, you know, there's, unfortunately, a lot of times we'll comment or reach out when you either want something or something negative has happened. There's been a loss in the family, and I'm really sorry to hear this.
There's a loss of like maintaining connections for the purpose of maintaining connections.
Yeah. And I think that before, back in the day, like that's why. And again, everybody's different. I was a very, believe it or not, I was a very shy person, and even now in my personal life, for whatever reason, I feel like I've got a small group of really good friends, as opposed to a huge group of people I don't really know.
I got like a 3 or 4 that you kind of
exactly
talk to.
Exactly. So now, while I, you know, being involved in this community as long as I have, I know enough people. Believe me, I'm scared shitless moving to Edmonton, and even my wife and I have commented on the fact that like we're not going to know anybody. So now it's like, whoa, like I never thought of that.
Because even like I lived in Airdrie for 4 years for university, but like, so I didn't live on campus or anything for
on
university.
A farm?
That's where I learned how to milk the cows. But like, so I lived with my parents. Obviously, it was way cheaper, so I didn't live in residence. So like, I found like I had this idea of like, okay, you go to university, you do all this partying, you meet all these people, it's the best time of your life. I was just driving to lectures every day. And so driving home, like I lived 40 minutes from the school. So when I drove every day, it's like I can't just go have 5 or 6 beers and then go to sleep. It's like I got to drive home.
And that's why,
you know what I mean? So it was very hard to move somewhere and be like, I don't know how to build a connection base without feeling like I'm trying to network you or like trying to get you to get something from you.
And I always, and it's funny because we always looked at it, and I'll never forget talking about guys. So when I went to university, we played hockey. So the beauty of hockey and any sport is at the moment you walk in, and again, how you do it with my guys is the moment you walk into a dressing room, you are part of an instant family. And I don't even like to use the word team. I like to use the word family because really when you look at it, whether you're a basketball player, volleyball, hockey player, the amount of time that you spend with your teammates, whether it's practice, pre-practice, post-practice, working out, on the road, games, you spend more time with them than what you do with your family. So even now, like we had a family, I called it a family building activity weekend. This was about a month ago in Edmonton, where I took my team. We had we went out and did some go-karting at Speeders, and then we went over to one of the parents was very kind enough to donate their house or use their house. We had a big barbecue. We had all of the families there. So now it's a big meet and greet and all that. But I remember going back to university and thinking, if I didn't play hockey and I went to university, what would I do?
Oh, I even found like I'd go sign up for clubs or whatever. And then they'd be like, oh, we're meeting Friday at 9 p.m. at this bar in downtown Calgary, like South End. I'm like, I got to drive an hour to get down there. And I'm like, and so my current wife, she was going to U of A. And so I was at U of C. So I would usually just drive down to Edmonton for the weekend. And so I'd usually just be with her rather than like trying to kind of, again, that's kind of on me for not doing more to like kind of make friends. But I didn't really know, am I just going to go to one of these bars and sit quietly and hope someone talks to me? Like it was always kind of strange. Like even when you're single, it's like a different energy. Like you're kind of talking to everyone, but like it's like, hey, like, you want to be my friend? Like it's a very weird kind of dynamic. And so
that's why they have Tinder.
Well, even in Edmonton, like my brother lived there. So like I would spend time with Cassidy and my brother and his family. Like he had a young family then too. So I was like, I almost found even just like moving somewhere, trying to build a connection base, it's extremely difficult unless you're kind of because you kind of have, even talking about the sponsorship things, like even being an assistant, you're not really the primary for that, but you probably still meet all these people.
You do.
So that when you become the head coach, it's like, oh, hey, like you kind of had a relationship before you ask for something.
And I'm horrible with names.
Yeah, I am too.
Like I could meet somebody, say, hey, Joe, and then 5 minutes later, what was that guy's name again? Like, because you meet so many people, right?
Oh, yeah, especially teaching or coaching. It's like you're in an airport every day. That's kind of the
And that's why I always used to say, well, if I think the person's important, I'm going to remember them. And I've got certain buddies that can remember
everyone's name.
And they could sell. They could sell ice to an Eskimo. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and they can just do it.
Yeah.
And like again, I feel like I'm a very personable guy, but I'm sure that there would be a lot of people that would view me as
Kex is not for everybody.
Listen, I'm not. Like, you know, you try to be, but you know, I make kids cry on the ice, and you know, and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to do that, but it is. But you know, the ability to establish relationships is extremely important. Whether you're an educator, whether you're in the business world, whether you're in the sports world, you know. You want to make sure that networking is the buzzword. Yeah.
So
you have to be able to do that.
For like building relationships is literally like no matter what business, anything that you're into, it's like always relationships. Do you have like a process for building relationships? Do you kind of have like you don't want to kind of go in blind, but you don't want to go with like a plan. Like how do you kind of like, I don't really know what I'm asking in terms of like when you're meeting or trying to expand to like a network or build connections, like what do you kind of do?
When you have somebody that you don't know, the first thing that you have to do is find a little bit of common ground.
Yeah.
And wherever that is, it might be in family, might be in upbringing, might be where you went to school or whatever.
Yeah.
We always say in the hockey world, it's such a small world because I could call anybody.
Yeah.
And if you talk long enough, oh, I know him. I know. So so really the number one thing that you want to do with anybody is, okay, there has to be some common ground.
Like connect your
somewhere,
networks.
And that's your that's your connectedness. So once you establish that, now that web is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think it's important, you know, and if you're asking strictly from a, you know, I want to reach out with these people, whether you do a little bit of research or whatever, but you do want to know, okay, where is that common ground that we can both fall on? So then you have that reason to make that phone call as opposed to I'm calling that guy because I need something.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's tough. And
there's so many times to it.
No, but you know what? I think the person that's doing the actual calling or that needs a certain thing puts more emphasis on that and feels bad as opposed to the other person.
Yes.
Like it's no problem. Like you need something, like call me. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how we do it. And like I hate doing it. So for instance, you know, Colton Perrier plays for the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
And Colton was here in Fort McMurray for 2 years. I coached him. I was very fortunate that he had us down after they won the Stanley Cup. I got to take my son down, all this kind of stuff. I would never dream of just calling him up and just asking for stuff. And then I've got some other guys that'll call him and bother him, but you never do. So every now and then you'll text, say, hey, how's it going? You know, or whatever. Yeah. So I think that's, you know, I don't think it's as bad as it has to be a two-way street.
Yeah. And so kind of like going on to, again, shifting gears a little bit here, because I remember we were talking about like your kind of development as a coach. Like I remember one time you told me about like kind of the path for coaching was kind of like who you attach yourself to a little bit. So
all about that.
And so like, I guess if you're kind of, I think I kind of briefly talked to you about this when we were at that grad dinner thing, but like what would you kind of look for in a mentor to attach yourself to? Like, what do you kind of look for in a mentor?
Wow. That's a great question. Yeah. Because to be honest with you, the best mentor that I had was Gord Thibodeau.
Okay. So why?
But
why does he stick out? He was one of your first ones as well.
He was one of my first. Well, yeah. So he was one of my first ones. Listen, in any mentor situation, you look at and you have to learn things from every situation, and the things that you learn are sometimes positive. This is what I would do, or sometimes you look at it and say, you know what, I wouldn't do that. And the worst thing that we can do, whether even you're an educator or a businessman, you look at some successful people, I want to be just like that person. But you're never going to be that person because everybody's different. Yeah. So you have to establish yourself. Yeah. You take from other people and, you know, and things like that. But really at the end of the day, you have to be true to who you are.
It's like, what made Gord a great coach to you?
Honestly, I think that Gord was just able to relate to kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that at the time, again, this is a different time. This is like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the beauty of Gord was the fact that he could motivate. He knew how to motivate different people. And I think that while in one sense, he could totally, like when you made a mistake or you did something wrong, he could rip you from top to bottom.
Yeah.
But at the end of the conversation, he made sure that that person, again, knew that he cared about him and that we're going to work and we're going to be better next time. So nobody needs to tell you.
So
when
always
you screw
kind of
up.
Coming back to like, I'm pissed at you, but like we're in this together.
Like you screwed up.
Yeah.
You screwed up. It's your fault. But it's okay.
No
because
grudges.
You know what?
No grudges.
I'll help you. And we'll get better at it. And I think, again, that goes back to that feeling where if a student or an athlete or a person knows that you care about them, I think that's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And he was able to do that. I mean, obviously he's a smart hockey guy and all that, but I think even more so than the X's and O's, he knew how to deal with people. Mm-hmm. And I think even as
what do you mean by relate, like to the because I'm not gonna say students, but like players are essentially high school, slightly after high school age, like young adults.
Yeah. Like, well, first of all, he had credibility because he was a heck of a hockey player. I mean, that's the first thing that you need.
I didn't know that he played.
Yeah, no, he was a phenomenal hockey player. So you've got that instant credibility.
Okay.
And then just with his success, I think that kids always want to get better. They always want to get to the next level.
Yeah.
At hockey, whether if you're playing junior, you want to go to college or you want to go to pro. And when you can look back and say, okay, well, Gord had more players leave here and get NCAA scholarships and they ended up being captains. I think that was even more important for us as a coaching staff and for Gordy was not only did players leave here and get to the next level, when they got to the next level, they were leaders. Like they were captains because they understood what it meant. And I think there's a fine line between, as a coach, I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
We were in getting ready for playoffs. We were about 2 weeks out.
Mm-hmm.
And we hit a funk as a hockey team.
Okay.
And we played brutal on the weekend.
Yeah.
Gord canceled practice for a week. And just left. So I'll never forget. It was a Monday or I'm pretty sure, or Tuesday or whatever. And we were skating around the ice. Practice was back then started at 3:00.
Yeah.
And Gord didn't come on the ice. So we were skating around. A couple of players who knew Gord. Lane Cafaro was our captain. He came to me and said, Kex, we're not practicing today. I said, what do you mean? He said, he's not coming out. So sure as heck, we skated around for 5 minutes. And Gord came out on the ice, brought everybody to the board, said, bus leaves 10 o'clock Friday. See you later. And he turned around and he just skated off the ice and he walked out the building. And like that was it. So I remember sitting there going, like what the heck are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like we've got. So the guys looked at me and said, Kex, like, what do we do? Should we practice? I said, listen, just get out of here. I said, you make sure you keep up with your workouts, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So that was a Tuesday. We left Friday. Like there was zero communication between Gord and myself, like that whole week.
Oh, like even
and this
between
is 2
you
weeks,
and Gord. Okay.
Even between Gord and I.
Yeah.
And this was 2 weeks over for playoffs. I'm thinking to myself, holy, like, what are we doing? So we were in Bonnyville. And, obviously you get there a couple hours. So we sat down together and Gord and I still hadn't talked. And we had a relationship where I knew there was times where I would initiate conversation. And there were other times when Gord was ready to talk, he would talk.
Yes. Yeah.
So we sat there and Gord said, okay. So he says, why do you think, what do you think? I was like, well, geez, we didn't practice. He says, well, why do you think I did that? And that's what was great about Gord was he kept me in. He said, there's a problem in the dressing room. But he said, you know what? They have to figure out what that problem is. It doesn't help them if I tell them what the problem is and I fix it. He said, the most important thing is that they have to figure out what the problem is and they have to come up with a solution. So that's the type of leadership where if there's a problem,
like
easy thing to do is this is what's wrong. This is how you have to fix it.
Yep.
But do they really learn? This was more or less, you figure out what the issue was and you're gonna get us out. And I think that's why players that used to come to Fort McMurray ended up being such leaders, because we had some guys in there that figured it out. And this is what we have to do. So that weekend, I think we didn't practice all week, and I'll never forget, the other coach came up and said, hey, how's it going? Good. How's your team doing? Gord's like, I don't know. Well, what do you mean? I haven't seen him all week. What do you mean you haven't seen him? We didn't practice all week. He's like, what do you mean you didn't practice all week? Screw him.
It's kind of getting in their head too, though.
No, well, he said, no, he says, you know what? He said, and the philosophy was they didn't deserve to practice. They played like crap. They didn't deserve to practice because that should be a privilege. Yeah. So we ended up going 1-1-1 that weekend.
Okay.
But in the playoffs, we went all the way to the league final. So they figured it out.
What year was that?
I can't even tell you.
You played Brooks that year?
No,
okay.
That was a different year.
I remember watching the final game and watching Brooks 1-6, I think, here.
Yeah, that was tough. Yeah.
I remember watching that one.
I think this was the year that we lost to Grand Prairie in the final. Grand Prairie went on to the World Bank Cup that year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But so that was the beauty of Gord being able to read players and having enough structure.
Reading the room, too, though.
Reading the room and having enough structure from the sense that the players knew that, okay, we have to figure this out.
They knew it wasn't a week off.
No,
you know what I mean?
Like something was wrong, and that was it. But if another coach maybe did it, it maybe wasn't. Like if you hadn't prepared your team for that,
yes,
they would fall. And you never want to create, as a coach or a teacher, you never want to create an environment where people are going to fail. Whether they're taking final exams, right? As a teacher, we're so worried about whether it's grade 3, 6, 9. I can't, like provincial exams and all. Yeah. We always want our students to do well. Yeah. So we have to create that environment. As a hockey coach, you have to do the same thing. You have to create an environment where they feel safe, they feel respected, but they know that if they do what you ask them to do, they're going to be successful. So and listen, I remember it got to the point where Gord would do some off the wall things, right? But the players said it's okay. Yeah, like we got this. Like so, the young players who didn't know Gord, they're like they're shitting bricks. Like, oh my God. And the older players would be like, hey, don't worry about it. This is why we're doing it. Don't worry. We'll take care of it. And that was the interesting thing then.
So how would you guys go about choosing your captains and assistants? Like what was so I guess my thing is I always heard I guess Patrick Kane comes to mind. Like I don't think he's ever been an assistant captain in Chicago. I could be wrong. Or just in general, there's always very good players on teams who would never wear an A or a C. Yeah. What is kind of the difference between a good player and a leader player?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you've got players that. So, for instance, Connor McDavid is the best player, so he's the captain. Yeah. Now, is Connor McDavid the most articulate player when he's doing interviews? I would probably say not. Yeah. Right. But he's a leader. Yeah. But he's a leader, and he's chosen to lead that group because he's the best player, and he works hard. Yeah. And things like that. But you've got other instances where your best player is not going to be your most vocal player, but they're going to possess Landeskog and exactly McKinnon, right? Exactly. Yeah. So they're going to be players who embody. Exactly. Yeah. I know for us as leaders, it was always. We have weekly meetings with our leadership group, and things like that. So really, as a coach, your leader has to be your link between the coach's office and the dressing room.
Like a liaison kind of
liaison. Thing, yeah. So you need to be on the same page. So it's somebody that embodies I coached, I think it was 17 years in the Alberta Junior Hockey League in total. And one of the best leaders that I had was Brandon Ralph. Brandon came back as a 20-year-old, played in the Western League with the Edmonton Oil Kings. I went to school with Brandon. Pretty well, a phenomenal individual, phenomenal. Oh, yeah. But was a player who physically, I think he was 6'1", 6'2", physically was dominant. So the moment he walked into the room, instant credibility, instant. And he was a phenomenal leader because he just knew how to manage the room and things like that. Yeah. Later on,
the players accountable.
Exactly. Well, yeah. And later on, we had I think one of my last years, it was Tanner Miller was our captain because he had been here for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Wouldn't say boo, right? Wouldn't. But you know what? But was first guy at the rink, last guy off the ice, embodied still to the last day would ask. Our trainer Pete if he needed help loading the bus, just got character. It. And so now he led by example. So I think as a coach, you need a little bit of everything, but it can't be.
It's not always the voice in the room.
It's not always the voice in the room because the voice in the room might not be the best voice. Mm-hmm. It can't be your best player because your best player might not be the best leader. Yep. So as a coach, you just learn. That sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and sometimes you have them vote. Okay, who do you think should be the captain? Other times, they're going to announce the captain in the offseason, and I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think that as a coach, you have to have a pulse what's going on and what's the best thing for your team to do.
Yeah, I guess like it wasn't necessarily like the process for choosing, but like what kind of separates the people who end up kind of becoming, right?
I think the guys that know what the program and what you're about, and as I said, like they have, like your leadership group has to be the voice of the coaching staff, and that's why, like I said, I'll have weekly meetings on a Monday and just, okay, how are we feeling? What are we doing? You know, because there are times where you might have the best plans for the week, but if they come and say, you know what, Kex, we're a little tired this week. Okay, well, we'll ease off a little bit, or you know, do we need a team building function? You know,
kind of air things out a little bit.
You air things out. What's going on? Like, what should I know? Yeah. The beauty of junior hockey, and especially now, I don't know how the kids do it with social media and that.
Yeah.
But as a coach, you know more than what the players think you know. Yeah. But you don't know everything. I would never want to know everything that's going on in the dressing room.
Yes.
But you always know a little bit more than what they think you know.
Okay.
So then when you dangle that little bit to them and say, hey, what about this? And they're like, well, how did you know about that? You know, so it keeps them a little bit more honest as well. Yeah. So, yeah, we've had some beauties.
Right on. Yeah. So how was your year away from coaching? Like, how has this past year been? Because you're still kind of like involved in hockey and stuff. Like, how has it been?
Well, and that's where I got my fill. I coached a 2013 born team this year, so you know I like that.
Oh my god!
Yeah, like 9 years old. So you can imagine them with me out on the ice, right? Yeah. So, but it was good from the sense that at the end of the year we ended up winning the league. So it was great from that sense. Yeah. So I think we started the year. I think we were like 3-11, and I can't even remember.
Oh, yeah. Turned them around one year.
Well, no, but by the end of the year, we I think we ended up 13-3-3, like to finish off the year. So sometimes it's not about where you start; it's about how you're playing, you know, through the course of the year. And I think that's also the important thing is as a coach, your success is not necessarily, you know, shown by the wins and losses. It's about the development. We're getting better. Don't worry. Stick true to the process. And that's what we did this year. And I know some of the parents were extremely worried at Christmas time because we were losing a lot of games, a lot of close games and a lot of ties. So they weren't happy, but you sell them on the like, listen, don't worry. It'll get better. And all of a sudden it just clicks.
Needing the instant.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean?
But that's
like,
it. You need that instant
to build that.
Yeah. Like, you know, and if this, you do something once, and all of a sudden, well, that's not going to work. Well, yeah, but you got to try it, you know, something 2-3 times. Yeah. So it was great. It was great in that sense. And like I told you earlier, I love coaching. Like that's your passion. It's never.
I was kind of about to ask you that. Like, what is it that you never tire of? Because I find like you're someone like every day you're like, oh yeah, I'm on the ice like 4 o'clock, like at 4 a.m. It's not a thing. But like, what is it that kind of keeps you? Like,
I just love being with the kids.
Yeah, like has it ever today, felt like I was kind of, or like has it always pretty much been like,
you know what,
just like, another good day, outstanding.
It's outstanding. It is like I've never like. So today, like I was on the ice at 12 o'clock with the group, and I was with my son was out helping, and there was one of the fathers, and we were doing drills. Yeah, and as a coach, the kids are doing drills, and they're doing it properly without even thinking about it. So we had it set up where you needed to make a pass. I didn't have to tell the kids, well, if you're coming on one side, this is going to be a forehand pass. But if you're on the other side, now it's a backhand pass. Because what's the easy thing to do? It's always to give a forehand pass. Yeah. Harder thing to do is give a backhand pass. Yeah. But not once that I have to tell them, hey, like you should maybe think about giving a backhand pass. They just did it. So I was sitting there with the guy and I said, you know what? I said, I don't care at the end of the day if they make every pass on the stick. It's the fact that they're making forehand passes when they should make forehand, backhand passes when they should be. They're not going
proper
offside.
Awareness in the situation.
So that's it. And this is the one thing, and you try and get it through to coaches. I'm different. Like I've had a lot of success because 2 years ago with the U13 team, we won provincials. Yeah. And then last year, the 2013 team that I had, we won as well. So people say, oh, must be because you're a great coach. No, you know what it is? I've got my belief. So I'm a person, when you're out on the ice with me, if I ask you to do something, then do it the way that I ask you to do it. Yeah. And the first thing is when I'm at the board and I draw a drill and I say you have to stand at the blue line, I expect you to stand at the blue line. Yeah. I don't want you 3 feet in front of the blue line. I don't want you 2 feet. I don't want you 1 foot. So where a lot of coaches will worry about, did they make every pass? Did they hit the net every single time? All I watch is the drill is going to start. Are you standing where I asked you to stand? If I tell you to skate to the red line, stop and then go backwards, did you go to the red line or did you stop a foot? If you stopped a foot, then I blow the whistle. Like, you just can't have that.
Yeah.
So it's the basics of kids understanding. He asked me to do this, I better do that.
Because that's probably like satisfying for you as a coach too. Like kind of like it's like you're watching them like kind of again going to the red line versus a foot. That's growing as a person, not just as a player. You know what I mean? It's like you're seeing them be like, okay, like not just like teaching them to take orders, but like showing them the effectiveness as to why you have orders in the first place. And that's probably like a good.
And the thing that I tell them is that if we're doing this at the start of practice and we're just doing starts and stops or skating or whatever, and you can't do that, later on when I'm going to ask you to do D zone or 1-2-2-4 check or whatever, like how are you supposed, like, and you can't listen, like how are you going to do this? Like it's just the basics. And but it's too easy for, and I, you know, listen, I was a coach mentor here for minor hockey for a couple of years, and that was my biggest, I got frustration with coaches is that they wouldn't look at that. They looked at the end, okay, we can't break out. Well, yeah, but your kids don't listen to you because they don't stand where they're supposed to stand. And it might not be a big thing now, but you know, so the message I give kids is if you can't listen now, how can I trust you? So when the game is 1-1 in the third period, the last 10 minutes, are you going to take a shortcut or are you going to do things the right way? Because if you take a shortcut, you're not going to be successful. And the joke that I use with kids is that with the oil barons, and this was true, Gord would tell you once, like this is where you have to stand. If he had to tell you again, he would warn you, but then he would kick you off. If he had to tell you a third time, he would trade you. And we trade you to Manitoba. You ever been to Manitoba? It sucks. Now that's the joke. So this is the funniest thing. This is the funniest. So with my 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, you ask any of them that are out on the ice with me, say, well, what would Kex do if you didn't? Well, he'd trade you Manitoba.
Yeah, you got it on your hat. So you got the end there. It's like this is the warning right here.
So Justin Rose, who was the old assistant coach, came one day. It was after a weekend, and he said, Kex, like it was the funniest thing. He said, because we were out here with a group of kids. I was away or I missed a practice or whatever. And I asked him to run it. And he said, Kex, like it's the funniest thing. He said, because I was standing there, a kid came up and he said, oh, good thing Kex is in here. And Justin goes, well, why? Well, because that kid, Kex would trade him to Manitoba. He's cheating. He's cheating in the drill. So that was always good. But that's the true, like when you know, and we talk about it, you know, you're successful when do the kids behave the way that you would expect when you're not there. And it's one of the things that we tell kids. It's so
the fact that they remembered that to tell him, you know what I mean? Like that's
the best thing that I got this this year for Halloween. One of the kids in elementary Peak Hockey Academy, he dressed up as me. So he had the Oiler hat. I think he had a pillow stuck into but he had a tracksuit and it was Coach Kex and that. and he gave me a 3-page thing about the 3 things that Coach Keca believes in. And it was one of these things where when I'm doing a lot of power skating stuff, I'll always use the terminology dumper down, chest up. So when you're skating, get your ass down, your dumper, and keep your chest up. So that was rule number 1. So he cut out pictures. Number 2 was I'm a big, like I hate, my number 1 pet peeve when I come out on the ice for practice is kids that have 2 different colored socks. Like that drives me nuts because that shows me that you're not prepared for practice. So when you come out, have the same. Or
you were rushing and you just.
Or you were rushing. I forgot or something. No. And what's even worse is when I have kids out there and they wear the away sock on one leg and the home sock. So I know they've got the socks in their bag, but they've got like don't do it. Like I kick kids off. Like I'm sorry, I can't handle it. And then the third thing he says, again, if you don't listen, he had a picture of Manitoba. He says, this is where Coach Kex is going to buy you a ticket. So this is a kid, I believe in grade 5, that gave me this for Halloween. It's the best present I ever had. I got it. I just started laughing.
That is hysterical.
But you don't, but listen, but at the end of the day, sometimes you don't understand the influence that you have on kids.
And well, that would have been something that you wouldn't have even thought of.
No.
As like being something that you relayed, but like clearly those 3 things, it's like, you come on time, you're ready to go, and you listen, or else you're not going to be where you want to be. That's kind of like, that's the message there. Like, you're using Manitoba as the the scapegoat. Yeah. But, well, even today, when I was like thinking about a couple of things to talk to you about, like, I was like, what, have you ever had like an uncoachable player, and like, what would you do with them other than trading them to Manitoba? That was kind of my like thing. But like, have you ever had there's ever been like a real like stick in the mud where you've been like, I just don't know how to reach this guy. But you don't really want to trade him, but you're kind of like, I just don't know how to get into this guy to like have him.
No, you trade him.
Yeah, but like, how often is that the case? Like, are the kids they usually
not? I mean, listen, the thing that's not realistic. It's a great question, but at the end of the day, so this is the other thing that I get is in junior, I have my principles. Mm-hmm. I know how I want my teams to play. Yeah. So those are the types of players that I recruit.
Yeah.
This isn't out. So minor hockey, the unfortunate thing is minor hockey is totally different because if I'm a coach in minor hockey, whether it's in Fort McMurray, whether it's in Beaumont, whether it's in Lac La Biche, the players come and I get what I get.
Yes. Yeah.
So that way now I have to adapt.
It's more regional anyway.
Well, but I have to adapt to my players. When I'm junior, this is what I believe in. This is how we're going to play. Yeah. And so these are the types of players. So what we would tell the scouting staff, this is what I'm looking for in players. This is who you're going to recruit for me. Don't give me these types of guys. Give me who I want. So at the end of the day, I don't sacrifice what I believe in to accommodate the players. The players are going to change towards my system. Yeah. And if you don't, unfortunately, we don't have a fit.
Manitoba's always looking for players.
Well, but that's the luxury of being a junior coach is I've got my principles and I don't.
How long does it kind of take you to like weed them out? Like how long?
Well, listen, like, it's always sometimes it's situation specific. I mean, there's obviously when you're in the recruiting phase, you're going to meet a player, you're going to meet the family for a couple days or a couple times, and then you got to make a decision. Have we been right on every single player? No. So there's just not a fit. Yeah. But I also think that as long as the player knows that at the end of the day, and we're saying, I'm going to trade you. We're going to find a situation where he can be successful. Yeah. Every player that's ever come and tried out for Fort McMurray while I was coach or assistant coach, we've always wanted to be successful. And whether it's not in Fort McMurray, it might be in Lloydminster, it might be in Bonnyville, or we want them to be successful. Yeah. So we'll try and find a situation that works for them because not everybody's the same. Like you got to be a little bit different. We obviously had to recruit differently in Fort McMurray just because of the geography. That's the one thing that we couldn't change.
I think they've always had good teams.
They have,
I feel like it's always been.
Yeah, it's always.
I grew up going to like almost every Barons game.
Yeah, I mean the community support
for $9, like why not?
and it's such a great place to coach and to play, and you're treated like a rock star. So
yeah, that's true.
It's kind of cool, but it's we've had some players. It's oil and water, and that's unfortunate, but I'm not about to change what I believe in.
Fair enough. So now that you've been away from teaching for a while and came back for a year, would you recommend teaching to someone?
I've said, and I'm not going to lie. If you would have told it, so it's probably been 7 years since I was in a classroom. Yep. And I don't.
I know your wife has kind of always been through.
Yeah, it, and I was with Peak, so I wasn't necessarily in the classroom. But when I was at Merck, so you taught a little bit. If somebody 7 years ago would have told me that the classroom looks like it does today, there's no way I would have believed you, because I just, the challenges that teachers have today are so different than what we had 7-8 years ago.
Like, so even 7-8 years ago, like what are like, because I mean I graduated high school 8 years ago.
Yeah,
nine years ago.
Just the language that's used.
Yeah. That was the thing. Language was always like, I mean, you might say an F-bomb and get away with it once or twice, but usually that was like pretty, even in high school, you kind of understood. In the classroom, you don't say it, but now it's like, you just don't even, there's no respect, but like.
The respect is definitely diminished, and the lines are so blurred. And
what do you mean by lines are so blurred?
There's just so many different challenges. And I think that before, so I graduated in 99, which was a long time ago, but you really felt that, okay, I needed to know my information, like I needed to know the material, and this is what I was going to teach. Now, a teacher, the education part or the delivering of factual information is so minor compared to the behavior issues that you have to deal with. So many other challenges. So a teacher today, you spend more of your time just in classroom management.
So how are their like behaviors? Because like I even try to think about for myself. Like I went high school 2012 through 15, and so like there's always like kids who were shitty, and there's always like kids who didn't do their work. But like I almost find I keep hearing that there's new challenges and like that there's new gaps, but like I don't know what those are because this is just what teaching is to me. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of been a hard thing for me to understand how it's different.
I'd love to know, like a new teacher coming out of university, out of an education program. Mm-hmm. Like I'd love to know what they think. Mm-hmm.
Like think about what, like kind of how it's going?
About the class. Like, you know, when we left, you know, your education program, you just thought the world was going to be sunshine
and love what I say,
and rainbows and unicorns, and this was going to be great, and they were all going to listen, and they're going to sit in their desks, and now it's like, you know, it's just so different.
Putting out fires all the time.
And again, it goes back to the same thing, even with hockey. Like, to me, education has to be set up where you're delivering the information, but you're also helping the students get to the next level. So whether it's 10 to 20, 20 to 30, grade 12s to the real world. I don't know whether we're doing that.
Yeah.
Because we're so worried about our kids getting enough credits.
And we're worried about the diploma.
And we shouldn't be because when I was going through, the diploma is 50% of your mark.
Yeah.
It's what, 20% now?
Same.
Like it's not really worth it. And yet, so for instance, this year, we give 6 hours for 20% students to write a final exam that's worth 20% of their mark. In what profession do you have to sit there for 6 hours? Like 6 hours, man.
Now, they only have to sit there for an hour technically, but like you do get.
But you have 6 hours, so you've got students that sit there for 6 hours. What job do you sit there for 6 hours at a desk? And now you're allowed, obviously, to go up and go to the bathroom and then come back. Like where
you sit in silence. Yeah.
Like where is that?
Because that's supposed to assess where you're at, but like assess where you're at without zero verbal communication, essentially. And most of work is exchange of ideas and conversation and like planning. And like, that's true because it's mostly almost too individualized.
And it's for 20%. So now I feel bad for the students that are generally stressing out about this, which isn't fair to them either.
Yeah.
Right. So you're stressing out about something that's going to cost you 20%. So I'm not a math guy, but so if I get 90% or 60%,
no mathologist.
Well, no, but if I get 90% or 60%, like how much is that really going to affect my mark?
Yeah.
A couple percent maybe. Yeah. Really big picture, right? But but when you go back to look at, okay, well, how is this getting you ready? And I think the other thing nowadays that kids have that we didn't have, like was things that are functionally good from the sense that they got the RAP program or they got co-op and they got this, so it's going to help. So now we're not forcing kids to do all of these things, and that was the biggest thing to me is if I know I want to be a trades guy, then I want to do trades.
Yeah.
You can do that.
There's a bit more like, well, now their assessment's not based on this 6 hour diploma. It's based on like, you actually need to go to the workforce and try and figure it out. So that is a positive change. I think that's because I find even the RAP program has expanded in the last 8 years since I was in it, and especially to encompass like more fields. Like at first it was kind of just like, you're going to go be a mechanic.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what the RAP program was. And now it's like, oh, they have like, you can go be like a barber. That's like a trade where you can like get into that now in like high school.
And that's why when we talked about it at the start was, back in Europe, like that's what if you know that's what you want to do, then they're going to, and your summer job was that. And your practical time was that. But I honestly worry about the people that are going into the education programs and are coming out, whether this is like,
well, the scary part is like teaching is a profession in crisis in terms of like maintaining people that want to do it. So I'm like, I don't understand. Obviously, that's scary for me being a year into it, being like, what does this look like in 15 years? Like, I think it'll still be there, but I'm like, I don't know how to like manage a world where, because like when I was in school, it was you can't get a teaching job anywhere. Like everyone is doing this. You'll never get a job. You'll sub for 5 years. And now it's like, oh, here's the teach grade 11 and 12 in your first year. You know what I mean? It's almost like, which I loved, but it's also a little scary. And I just don't know how to, because I don't mind teaching so far. Like I mean, I know like you're smirk there at the system milker here, which was not 100% true, but like, and I do kind of avoid a lot of that major behavior kind of being in like an academic course in high school. So I can't really like relate to a lot of the main kind of behavior stuff. I even said like teachers will tell me like, oh, did you hear about this and this? I'm like, no, I'm just up in my room. Yeah. Doors closed. I'm just like watching crash course videos.
For me, the concerning part for me is this. Is we all understand that you do not get into teaching because you think you're going to be a millionaire.
Yes.
You do it because you love either working with kids, you love the idea of helping somebody out, watching somebody develop, somebody achieve something that they never thought was possible before. Like that's why you
in the relationship.
And like that's you, huge. It's because you milk everything, right? You're looking for the summer school paychecks and your trips out of town for track and field and and all this and all that kind of stuff. And the summer's off, and that's all great. But I'm worried about how many people are going to education. They get out, they see that teaching isn't what it used to be. In terms,
what do you even like? Yeah, so go ahead.
So like so kids are going to listen and like with discipline. It's all different. How many people are just going to say, I don't want to do this? And like you said, teachers in crisis. And like I really do think that and then. The geographic challenges that we have here in Fort McMurray, cost of living and because you're isolated and all that, like how hard is it going to be to get more kids? I love I think it's so awesome that let's say so you're back here for the first year. We know Jason Hamilton is a local person that went to U of A and now he's coming back to teach. I know Austin Connett, so I think that's so awesome when we have kids that went through whether the public school board or the Catholic school board. Now have gone through and they're coming back here as opposed to going elsewhere. I think that's awesome, but that's not going to sustain the need for teachers. You're going to have to bring teachers from other places. Are we going to be able to do that? And even the teaching profession as a whole, like it's really, really different. That sense of entitlement by kids and that instant gratification, like those are challenges that we didn't used to have. And it was more teaching. A teacher was an educator. Now you are
just getting so many content
more
kind of and just being like,
but you're so much more, and there's so many challenges that you have as a teacher. It really it's going to be very interesting.
It's almost like you're expected to solve any problem that comes up, regardless of like whatever lane it is. That's fair. I kind of because like I know the role of the teacher has like expanded, but again, like I'm just kind of coming in, but I'm like, oh, this is just normal. Like I don't understand. Not that I even feel like overworked. It's just like I don't know what it used to be. You know what I mean? Like I just
for me, the biggest thing was this, like, and it's different again. Like I am Xism for everybody, but I just know that there was also just a I don't want to say a fear factor. But even now, like even this year in some of my classes, and believe me, by no stretch am I saying that I taught classes. Like I was the ILC guy where people would work.
I was going to ask you about Colin.
People work on on different modules and that, but it's just like when I ask you to do something, like do it. Yeah. Like don't talk back. Yeah. Like you wouldn't dream of doing that. No. And now it was funny because the first semester I taught comm, and you talk to kids today about how school used to be. Yeah. Like back in the day, principal's office was a door and it was walls. There was no windows. Yeah. So the moment you walked by through that door and the door shut, it was the principal's word against your word. And then when the parents asked, they believed the principal, not you.
And that's what I find is, to me, the most consistent change I've heard from all the teachers is like the parents used to agree with you.
Yeah.
And like they were, it was like a joint between it's me and the parents with a plan for the kid. Now it's the kid and the parent against the teacher. Yeah. Which I can understand. It's like a lot of teachers will put in all this work all the time, and then just to come home, just to go to school and just get shit on. Yeah. By students and parents. And it's like, okay, well, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I? Like, why would I put in extra work?
Well, back in the day, you would call a parent to come in for a parent meeting, and the parent would ask, the kid, well, what'd you do to, to the teacher? Yeah. Now the parent comes in and asks the teacher, hey, what'd you do to my kid? Yeah. Yeah. And then I told you this, my story. Like my dad used to bring me the first day of every year and parade me in front of the teacher and said, this is my boy Tom. If Tom gets out of line, you whack him. And then you call me because I'm going to whack him when he gets home. And I was never scared of the teacher. I was scared of my dad. And my dad never laid a finger on me, never had to, because there was that fear factor.
Yeah.
And just like here, like I know with some of the kids, and the luxury that I have to a certain degree when I'm in the classroom is some of the hockey guys know me from the ice and how I speak and how I conduct myself. Yeah. So there's that little bit of fear factor. Ooh, he might do this. Yeah. Right. So,
always kind of like keeping them on edge in like a healthy way. Cause like, because there needs to be like a boundary of like,
there does,
teacher and student, or like boundary of like parent and kid, not like we're on the same team against someone else kind of thing. Like,
totally. And one of the things that I tried to do this year as well in the first semester was I tried to come across and make sure that the kids knew I'm a little bit old school. Yeah. So if I say something wrong or I don't use the right pronoun or whatever, it's strictly an accident. It's not because I'm trying to be. Yeah. So
you're adapting too. Like
exactly.
You've been out of like school for 7-8 years.
So I think I think to a certain degree the kids understood it, and it was okay. Rather than me just coming in and being naive or not willing, so like it is what it is.
Was there anything like shocking to you coming back? Or was it like
No, it was, man. Like listen, like we're in that instant gratification. So everybody on their phone was an issue. And I know that
I still don't enforce that well enough. Like I don't even know like what the plan to have a consistent cell phone plan. I don't even I don't know what that looks like, or like I understand I can be more of a dick, not more of a dick, but just like be more. But again, it's also like you're almost 18. Like,
but a lot of your lesson plans nowadays are relying on internet. So if you don't have Chromebooks now, what do kids need? They need their phones in order to get certain stuff. So it's a slippery slope. Yeah. Listen, again, this is me being naive. I don't want to be ignorant, but me being naive. Even the bathroom situation, like
how often do you need to shit?
male, how many go out, but male, female, and all it's just different. Because I think that the challenges that students have today are so much more than what they used to have.
So even challenges the students have, like what do you think?
Students, listen, just growing up. Yeah. Not even the challenges educate, like nothing, just socially.
A lot more comparison.
Social media, like we would have never survived, man. Like growing up back in the day, if there was like Snapchat and all that kind of stuff, there's no way.
Because even Instagram, I think only really like social media.
Instagram, man. Well, when I was growing up, there was no internet. Well, come on.
Well, I even say like I say to my students on one side, I'm like one of the first teachers they've had who kind of also had Instagram and Snapchat and all these things in high school. But I didn't have it until grade 10 or 11 or 12. So I still kind of like grew up. You didn't know where your friends were, like unless you saw the bikes out front of someone's house. You know what I mean? I didn't have a cell phone on me all the time. My parents never knew where I was. You know what I mean? So, but now it's almost so much more like there's always someone hovering over you everywhere. Whether or not like you could be by yourself, but your phone is still on you. Like you're still like being kind of attached to everyone. Like there's no kind of independence anymore.
No,
I've noticed, but
and when you have to, where your social acceptance is based on how many likes you get on a post or whatever, like that challenge and that is like I would hate to, I would hate to be a young person trying to grow up nowadays. You really, because like social media is cruel because you can hide behind a keyboard. And all that
you can pretend your life is so different.
Exactly. Right. And it is. And that's why at the end of the day, it goes back to even back one of my first years teaching, like the school has to be a safe place for kids to come in all of this chaos and all of these different subgroups within our student body and, all the challenges that teachers have. It still has to be a safe place to come.
And I almost find that's one of like what the disconnections is, like the idea that safe and disciplined are two different things. You know what I mean? Like those can be the same thing. Like you can be in like an orderly kind of disciplined environment, but it'd be the safest place that you're going to be. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about with kind of how you run your ice time. It's like you have a certain way of doing things, but it's like we're going to get better together. It doesn't have to be I tell you to do this. That means that we're adversaries. You know what I mean? That's not the relationship that it needs to be.
Well, and back even as a teaching, when you were a teacher, you would write up on the chalkboard and kids had to write stuff down. Why? Nobody would ask why. They would just do it because that's just the way. In hockey, same thing. And we're doing this. Nobody asked why.
Like every single task.
It's because I told you to do it, right? Now kids are like, why are we doing this? What benefit does it have? And I think sometimes even from a teaching perspective, you can't look at that as a negative. Like some teachers might, well, why are you questioning me? You can't, because kids nowadays want to know, like, if this is not helping me or this is not beneficial to me, then why am I doing it? Like, think about all the things that we did as a kid that we did that just didn't, well, why are we doing this?
Because I'm even like, part of the struggle is there needs to be a way to instill the value of education in the students. I find students don't really buy into the fact that your K-12 actually serves you in any way.
Not at all.
Do you agree with that?
Totally, because where was it now? I think it was in the comm booklet. Like, I think in one of the booklets it asks you, is high school preparing you for university? And I guarantee you, if you poll the students, they would say, not a lot. Now, first thing I would question is, well, how do you know? Because you're not in university. You don't know what's expected out of you. And frankly, I don't know what's expected nowadays out of university. My daughter goes to Concordia in Montreal. She's in a theater, but it's a lot different. She doesn't have final exams, and she's a lot more theater-based and creative performance and things like that. But like, what does a university classroom look like nowadays?
Well, and that was kind of, this is the part where for me, I'm always like, K-12 prepared me, but because now I'm teaching K-12. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm still kind of within the same system. So it kind of helped me like learn how to teach the curriculum, but like I also went through it. So I had an idea, like an institutional biography of like what teaching was like. So technically, K-12 prepared me for university, because university was based on teaching K-12, and now I teach K-12.
Yeah.
But for as it prepares you to be like a business person, or like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
But again, it goes back to those core things. So I was asked this year by a student, question the fact that, well, this is not preparing me for university. And I said, well, what do you mean? So the example the student gave me had nothing to do with the education part.
Yeah.
He said, well, because if I want to go use the bathroom in university, I can just get up and go. And here now I have to sign out and all.
It's not a good argument.
Well, but it's not, right? Like, so now I'm sitting there going, okay, so this is why you don't think, because
so if I let you pee when you want, now you're prepared for it.
Exactly, right? But even going to class, like taking attendance, and all that kind of stuff. And again, and I mean, we've had talks with this, and even with other teachers, even like the expectation of teachers to continually phone home to parents about grades and about attendance.
I think it's more, especially for me, I think I've avoided that because you would have gotten all my emails with Max. But like, I rarely call home, but I'll email.
But why should we have to?
But especially now, because even like the report cards thing, I'm like, this is not necessary. You can literally log on PowerSchool at all times and see what your kid's grade is.
I know as a parent,
they'll still email you, and I'm like, okay, and which is fine. Like, I'll still like, oh yeah, this is their mark. This is kind of how they're doing. But like, it's not necessary. And I think junior high, it's more the case. But I haven't had an issue with like parents being like, oh, like you're not reaching out enough, or like whatever.
But it's funny because I don't ever expect a teacher. So I have two kids Max was grade 12, Carter was in grade 10. I would never expect a teacher to have to call me or email me and say, well, Max isn't doing his work, or Max isn't at school, or Carter isn't doing this, because Power Schools is there.
Yeah.
So if I'm a parent who's really interested, I look, and we do every week. Like, we'll look. What are your marks?
Because your grade is is a reflection of effort most of the time.
So that to me is what prepares kids for university. Yeah. It's not the fact that you learn in grade 12. What's the social curriculum? Whatever.
Ideology.
Well,
liberalism.
Exactly. But whatever it is, like, that's not necessarily what's going to make somebody successful. It's do you have the proper habits of being on time, doing all your work? Like, those are the things.
Well, and that's even one of the things I'm like, does it matter if you know the difference between authoritarianism and totalitarianism? Yeah. No. One of the things is kind of like vocabulary integration and learning how to communicate in a discipline. So like being a doctor or an engineer, like you're learning this new language, being able to like integrate that vocabulary and then be able to like talk to other engineers about engineering. That's kind of the soft process that I think is like of value in social. But again, that's also, I think it's the skill that's helping prep them. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah,
it's kind of like
totally. Nobody looks and says, oh yeah, you must be better at social because you got 73 in social 30, and this guy got 85. Okay, this guy's obvious. At the end of the day, when you come out of university, you've got the paper, but it's the habits that you've learned from K to 12 that are going to prepare you for, for university, not necessarily the grade that you get. And, but it's funny. And I think it goes back to, it's not necessarily the smartest student who's going to be the most successful. It's who's got the best work ethic, who's able to communicate, networking and all that. Like those are the important things.
All right, so Tom, after our 6th light outage of the day, I have one more thing to ask before we head out. I heard this quote one time. I thought it was really cool. Education is what remains after we've forgotten everything we've learned in school. So I guess when students come into your classroom or they're on your team, what is it that, above anything else, that you want them to learn from having you as like their coach or teacher?
Again, and we're going to beat this horse till it's dead, but I think for me, it's the first thing is that I care about them. Yeah. So I want every single student to know that I cared. And I think the best thing now, because I've been coaching for so long, I take the greatest joy when I get an invitation to a wedding, or I get a birth announcement. So one of my former players, had a child or whatever. I've had, even I've had some players that have reached out and said, you know what, Kex, there was one time where, you did this and I didn't really understand it, but now I'm in the business world.
They reflect on what you did.
Now I totally see what you were trying to get at, and I want to thank you. That to me is better than any paycheck that you can ever get. When a student comes back to you in 15, 20 years and said, you know what, thanks, because now I get what you were trying to get through. And in fact, listen, my very first year as the head coach in Lloydminster, the best phone call I ever got was I had a player who in the summertime was on the rodeo tour. He was an outrider. Okay. So in the summertime, that's what he did. He was a farm boy from Saskatchewan. He was an outrider. So all summer he toured on I think it was the CPGA or whatever. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then we started hockey. So he was one of my assistant captains. He was a 20-year-old defenseman or whatever. But they had the awards dinner like in November or December or whatever for that year. Yeah. And he won the outrider of the year. So I'll never forget, I was traveling back from Bonnyville because I was out scouting. I was coming back and he phoned me. And he was so excited because he won the outrider of the year and he got a truck for the year. Okay. He got the truck. Yeah. It was all decked out in the decals. It was the most tacky thing I'd ever seen. But he was so excited. And this is a Friday night, 8:00, where he said, Kex, would you come and just see this truck? You got to see this truck. And for me,
they want you to be a part of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was that at that time, again, it was my first year as a head coach. Like you get that this is not about the money. Yeah. This is about, establishing those relationships. And even now when I get, just when you get players that call you and say, hey, listen, I'm in town. Can you want to go out for a beer and all that kind of stuff. So it's not about, they're not going to remember the 2-1-2 forecheck or the left winger lock or, anything. They just remember the lessons and the fact that you cared enough about them at that time. And you'd like to think that you're going to reach every student. We've talked about it. You're not going to. But you know what? You'd be amazed while sometimes you as a coach or a teacher, you don't feel you've reached a student or player, but you have. And sometimes it's going to be negative. Yeah. Right? Because I can list right now 3 or 4 players that I would, I never want to see or hear of again. But you've got some that, so like I said, like when you have those relationships and they reach out to you to share something that's important to them, that's the greatest gift that you can have. And even now, like yesterday, like listen, I'm at Keano College, I'm at St. Croix Sport and Wellness Center. We're there, I'm with a group of kids that were training in the summertime, and I bump into a student that I had in grade 8 at Dr. Clark. And he goes, hey, Keck, hey, Mr. And they, some people still call me Mr. Keck, but now it's Kex. Yeah. Kex, how's it going? Hey, how's it going, man? I haven't seen you. How's it going? Oh, great. I'm a process operator out at the plant. I'm making money. Are you married? Well, I got a girlfriend. I'm buying a house. And like, so that's the kind of stuff.
Seeing them succeed later.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. Yeah. Right. So, you're always going to have that, you and I have talked about the ice cream story, right? Like you're always going to have those scoops, right?
Yeah.
So like as
everybody, you swallow it, you get on to the next bite.
Everybody, but as everybody knows, like I love ice cream. So if you know, I could be eating the best pail of ice cream that in the world, but you take one little scoop of shit and you mix it around, all you're gonna taste is the shit. So even with my kids, I say like don't be the shit, like be the ice cream.
Yeah.
And you know, there's gonna be there's gonna be days where I don't feel I'm at my best as a teacher. There might be something that goes on. There's gonna be days when the students, but I think that as long as we understand that we each have each other's back. So one of the sayings I'm gonna use this year is I got you. It's okay. Like today you might not be your best. I got you. Because there's going to be a day where I'm not at my best. So you're going to have to help me out. So as long as you have that sort of mentality.
Because again, to kind of back to that story, it almost gives you a fulfillment of serving properly. Because then you've kind of instilled like values in them rather than like, this is what the answer to that question was.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, totally. And again, like you don't understand, the power that you have as a teacher. And I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned from my time down at Dr. Clark, which was phenomenal. But you just don't understand, the scope of the influence that you have, on students nowadays. And that has to be something that every person that's getting into teaching has to understand. And that's why it even makes it that much more challenging now with so many different
there's a lot of
social issues that we're going to have to navigate here in the next years, and it's becoming more and more prevalent in that. So I think teachers really have to take a step back and understand the role that we play.
All right. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Perfect.
Hello again, everyone. Just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this conversation, and hopefully you enjoyed the conversation just as much as I did. If there are any issues with professional conduct and or you would like to share your own story, experience, or something you would like to contribute to the show, please reach out at lucasrdclark97@gmail.com or send a direct message on Instagram to @mrclark.afterdark. Hope you enjoyed, potentially found something of use, and of course, please do not forget to subscribe. See you next time, unless you're scared.